Hi friends, this is Bilal Heather, and in this video part we are going to learn to use variables in JavaScript. So in the previous video we learned that there are some constant values, some numbers, some text, some characters, some scientific numbers that we can use in JavaScript programs. So it's probably right time to start learning variables now. So there are actually actually three ways to create variables in JavaScript. First one is old one. If if you're reading other people's code, you may find this way of writing variables. So let's first learn how to write variables with the current method. So here's how we create variables. We start with the keyword let, then we give our variable a name. Variable is basically um, a thing or a box in which we store some constant values. Okay, so we give our variable a name. Let's say username, and then um, press equal sign, and in double quotes, if we are storing a constant string in a variable, then we can store using double quotes, and we can type our username, right? So this is the way we create variables. Okay, so we start with the keyword let, then we give our then we press space, that's important, then we type a variable name that, and this name, it can be any name you want. Okay, it can be username, it can be x, it can be y, it can be donkey, it can be anything basically. And then you create then you set equals, and then whatever constant value that you want to store in that variable. So now let's console log the let's console log our variable and see what's inside it. So console log is helps us in um, getting output on the screen. So with console log we correctly see that our username has this value inside it. So our code correctly works. So we were successful in creating a variable and storing a constant value in it. So what's the use of variables? Variables are basically um, we can use them to in our program when we have a value that can change during the execution of a program. So let's say we have age, and we store 27 in it, and later on our age changes to 28. So we can set variables to new value like so. So we type the variable name that we defined here, and this time we don't need to put let before it because we already created this variable, and now we can use it throughout our program. So we have that variable, and we are using equal sign to set a new value to it. Now if I go ahead and compile and run this code, or actually just run it, you'll see that now age has 28. So it has 28 because when we defined or initialized our variable here, we set it to be 27, but later on we changed its value to 28. So JavaScript program runs like so. It starts here, it executes an instruction, then it moves to the next line, then executes another instruction, then executes another instruction. So that's how it's working. So here it was 27 and now it's 28. Simple, right? So as I told you when I was creating this program, that there are three ways to actually create variables. The first one you saw already, we use let keyword, we type a variable name, we set it equal to something. There is another old way of creating variable, and that is using a keyword of var. Okay, var stands for variable, and this was an old way. I will tell you why you should now use let in a moment. So this is the old way to write variable. So the process is same. Var username equals some constant value, and then we can use that variable in our program like so. We can also change this variable's value here, right? So we can just run it and it will just work. Before there was var, now we have two. When we had var, we did not have this second thing which I'm going to tell you now, and that is const. So there was this old way of creating variables when we used to do this, and now we have two things, actually three if you also include var. So we can do this, right? And we can also do this. So what's the purpose of creating a const? Let's say you have a program that has the number 10 being used in it 100 times. Okay, so instead of writing 10 10 10 100 times in your program, you you create a variable and you store the value 10 in it. And you 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 know, when you're writing this program, you know that this 10 a number, it's not going to change. It's a constant number and I won't be changing it in my program, so it's better to use const instead. So const basically tells a variable and that it's not going to change during the execution of the program. But if you use let, this variable's value, it can be changed during the execution of the program, while const won't let you do that. So it's good idea to use const when your value is not changing, and use let if your value if the value of your variable changes during a program. So that was the difference between var and let and const. So before when we had var, there was only one way to create constant variables or invariable variables. So when but now we have let and const. So